My appreciation for Wonder Woman as a character is something that grew over time for me while I was growing up. I got my introduction to her in the DCAU Justice League cartoon, but I didn't see Diana back then much more than as one of the female members of the league, and probably because of her being shipped in with Batman also didn't do any favors, because this ship made her come across as a schoolgirl with a crush. I don't recall having read any Wonder Woman comics before or after the DC's New 52, which did not portray her very well. So, what slowly grew my appreciation came from the Justice League comics that had her either as a supporting character or had her as a POV character of an arc. And Wonder Woman's animated appearances that I did watch also did not portray Diana that well, but they did work gradually so that by the time Zack Snyder cast Gal Gadot for Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, I had come to appreciate the character enough to be intrigued. Like with many other people, Wonder Woman's movie debut received a lot of praise that then added to the hype and expectations to the Wonder Woman movie due to be released in June 2017. I went to see this film on its opening night and even managed to talk my sister, dad, and stepmom to accompany me there. They did not hate it, and it actually made them excited for Wonder Woman's next appearance in. You know what? That's not important. The main gist of Wonder Woman 2017 is that it was always meant to be a spin off side story movie existing alongside with Zack Snyder's 5 movie plan going from Man of Steel to the third Justice League movie, aka a standalone film. As such, it did its job in telling how Diana met the soldier pilot Steve Trevor and left Themyscira for the man's world. The casting of Chris Pine as Steve Trevor, for example, was perfect for his on-screen chemistry with Gal Gadot, and the short-lived romance between them is believable in both of their performances and how it was written. The film's setting in the First World War was also something that had not been done before, and the story written by Zack Snyder, Alan Heidenberg, and Jason Fush had a reasonable beginning, middle, and end. I do think the villains of Elena Anaya's Dr. Poison, Danny Houston's Eric Ludendorff, and David Toulis' Ares were a hit and miss. Something that I have come to understand was caused by the director Patty Jenkins' creative vision and some studio meddling. My favorite scene in the film was at the party, where Steve tried to seduce Dr. Poison so she would reveal her secrets about her poisons, but then was distracted by Diana's sudden appearance and beauty, which then leads to Dr. Poison's amused dismissal of Steve in how she misunderstood the situation. Kind of like this. 今ちゃんってさ、彼氏いるの？全然友達って前こうちょっとチャラいけど、まあ今だし。また飯で付き合ってあげても。Anyway, as I said before, Wonder Woman 2017 was always meant to be a tie-in movie in Zack Snyder's 5 movie plan for Superman, with Wonder Woman being a supporting character given respectable amount of attention without taking it too far. From the setting of this film to Batman v Superman and to the Justice League, Zack Snyder had planned what kind of part Wonder Woman would play in Superman's story. After Steve Trevor died in World War One, Diana was supposed to be in mourning during what she called the Century of Horrors and not return to action as Wonder Woman until she saw the Doomsday Clone in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice and then properly establish herself as a hero when Justice League was forged. I don't have sources to back this up outside of this movie released later in 2014, but this is how I have come to understand what Zack Snyder's movie plan was. This movie was originally supposed to come out in December 2019, but then Rise of Skywalker happened and pushed the release to June 2020. Then you know what happened, and the release was pushed once again to December 2020 for those of you who had HBO Max and open theaters. For me, the theaters never opened when they were supposed to, and it took HBO Nordic all the way up until March 26th to release it. In between those 3 months, I was spoiled by quite a few things about the plot. The most infamous one being the how of Steve Trevor being brought back to life by having his soul possess another man because of an anomalous object. When I heard about this one, I made this how I would have made it video on how I would have written the story for the film. Link is in the description. Outside of that deal breaker, watching this film left me otherwise conflicted on how otherwise everything was done. The story for Wonder Woman 1984 was co-written by both director Patty Jenkins and Jeff Johns, whose stock in popularity has begun to shrink from my perspective more and more. It circled around an anomalous object that made people's wishes come true in the most literal way, with all the downsides included. Diana comes across this object in her day job working with ancient artifacts along with the film's version of Barbara Ann Minerva, played by Kristen Wiig, and after studying on its alleged properties written on its side, Diana plays with the idea of getting Steve back from the dead, and Barbara wishes to be like Diana, which is supposed to trigger her transformation into Cheetah. And probably to make up for him being the villain in Countdown to Infinite Crisis, Jeff Johns wrote Pedro Pascal's portrayed version of Maxwell Lord into a desperately trying to succeed failing businessman and a single father, aka a more sympathetic version, who steals this anomalous object and merges with it to become like Tom Ellis in Lucifer.
What do you wish for? What do you desire? What is it you desire?
Desire to do with the rest of your time on Earth?
Surely there must be something that you desire.
A simple premise, maybe even too simple, because the only thing I ended up getting from it was that Diana was given closure to how she lost Steve 66 years ago, which could have been done in a movie set in the present day too. I can understand the reason why this film was set in the 80s, because the other heroes were not around yet, but as I told in my video from the end of last year, Diana could have had her reunion with Steve in a less controversial way. Hell, the guy Steve ends up possessing doesn't even have a name! And apparently someone working at DC and Warner Bros. Noticed that this shit was not cool. Because Wonder Woman 1984 ended up getting a novelization that no one outside of these reviewers is going to read, in which Steve apparently came back in his own body. Outside of this controversy in the film, I would like to grade the other characters, aka Barbara Ann and Maxwell Lord, as appropriate for the story being told in this film, but they didn't make any impressions that would have lasted after the movie was over. Barbara's wish to be more like Diana just ends up giving her a makeover and a power boost, which, after learning that she would go back to the way she was, turns her desperately against Diana and Steve, and then in the end turns her into Cheetah, as in because it's something that's supposed to happen because of her comic book background. And the fact that she doesn't die or renounce her wish is probably done to leave Cheetah at large for future appearances. In the case of Kristen Wiig's performance, it worked for the film's version of Barbara and with what they had written for her to work with. That means I don't see how Wiig could have portrayed the version of Barbara and Cheetah from Greg Rucka's 2016 Wonder Woman run. Maxwell Lord, as played by Pedro Pascal, was, from my point of view, as I said before, Jeff Johns trying to redeem the character after he turned Max into a villain in 2005's Countdown to Infinite Crisis, just to give that story an ending twist where he kills Ted Kord's Blue Beetle and was later killed by Wonder Woman. And that is why he is written to be the most sympathetic version he could be while still being the main antagonist. I already brought up before that he is a single father and a failing businessman posing as a successful businessman who merged with the anomalous object to become Lucifer. I'm supposed to believe that his obsession to become really successful drives him to... Mitä vittua se halusi tehdä? Okay, So at first it was to become more successful and influential by merging with the object and using its power to grant wishes for the price of taking what he wants. But then granting wishes to too many people started to affect his health, so he had to mitä vittua se oikein teki? Have has someone wished to meet the president to get the president to wish him access to ei vittu oo todellista. Grant wishes remotely with some government satellite program to everyone watching his broadcast and take their health for himself in exchange and pass their hatred and aggression to Barbara so she can turn into Cheetah. Okay, if it is a form of corruption or something like that, then I guess it makes some sense on some level. Sounds really stupid when I have to explain it. And I can understand Kingdom Hearts lore better for comparison.
Translation? They were gonna turn all the members into Xehanort.
And that makes more sense than what Max is doing. Okay. Wonder Woman dressed up in her Kingdom Come armor, that according to the plot belonged to Linda Carter, pitch whips Cheetah, and then Jeff Johns tries to redeem this scene by having Diana tie her lasso around Max's ankle and talk to the world through him, making them renounce their wishes before getting Max to renounce his wish too and run off to find his son. While I do recognize the father and son reunion to be a sweet scene on its own, it is not implied that Max is ever made to face the consequences for his actions. Which is why I think would have been better to have everything revert back to the way it was before Max wished to merge with the anomalous object. With only Diana, who had renounced her wish that was made before the merger, being left alone to remember what happened and live with the experience. And maybe Barbara too, who also made her wish before Max merged with the object, but ultimately because that would have made what happened in the film more personal to the character that the movie is named after. Also, her message to the world would have been better off left to the humanity to remember emotionally instead of mentally, where they got the message but don't acknowledge getting it. That could have been shown visually in the film in Diana's final scene, where she could have seen a parent tell a child, or a child tell their friend, what Diana told to the world through Max's connection to the world, instead of passively acknowledging Steve's previous vessel.
Me? I'm already half Xehanort.
As I said before, I feel conflicted about this film. There were some good ideas in it that were unfortunately overshadowed by the thing that only the novelization's author noticed. Giving Diana her closure with Steve is good, and it does in some ways stay true to Zack Snyder's canon in Justice League by having her tell Cyborg that she lost someone she loved once in 1917 and then let him go in 1984. As the last thing Steve told Diana in the 2017 film, he wished that they got more time, and this movie was that borrowed time he wished they had. The execution of it was what it was, but I'm trying to see some good in this film too. The locations were pretty as well, and the fact that the world in chaos because of Max granting wishes made everyone too occupied to notice Diana running around as Wonder Woman. That was on a some level of cleverness. Otherwise, I don't know else to say about Wonder Woman 1984. I saw this film 3 months after everyone else did, and having heard what they had to say about it, I feel genuinely conflicted about the good things that were unfortunately overshadowed by the bad things. And when trying to weight them together, they just seem to cancel each other out to the point that Wonder Woman 1984's story might as well never need to be told. Ei vittu, tää on sekavaa. I'm just going to cut this down on the middle and call this a slightly above average film that just leaves you with the impact on never wanting to think about it again, unless you're okay with being hit with this much confusion. Comment down to help give me more coverage on the YouTube algorithm, while also liking and sharing the video to those who might seem interested on it. Subscribe and ding the bell icon to be notified when I get the next video out, and may your heart be your guiding key.